on this website, there's like a free tool. It's like a comparison tool. So if you scroll down on the homepage, you can input countries. So for example, if you input, Germany, Canada, and Turkey, then it tells you how those three countries compare on different, dimensions. For example, communication, directness, and things like that. And I think you'll love it.
Has it ever happened that everyone around you, everyone in your host country seems to see something the same way, except that that's different from the way you see it? Hi, I'm Cecile, a Canadian living in Turkey, and this is another expat conversation. Today I speak with Fiorenza Rossini, a leadership coach who focuses on cross-cultural understandings. But first, if you could take a moment and hit that subscribe button, like this video if you like it. It really helps this video get seen. Now let's get started.
So Fiorenza, can you start by please telling us where you're from, where you are now?
Sure. And that's a great question to start with. So I was born and raised in Paris in France. However, my family is from Italy and also a bit from Turkey. And I am living in London in the UK right now. I've been living in London for 10 years. So yeah, pretty much feels like home now.
Yeah. When did it start to feel like home? How long did that take?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I couldn't tell you, to be honest. I think it's been progressive. It's been so much progressive that it just, I just smoothly transition into that feeling.
So now you're in the UK, and would you ever put a label on your status there? Like, do you think you're an immigrant? Do you think you're an expat? Is that not even a question?
I think initially I did feel like I was an expat because I didn't know, how long I would be working there. Even if I actually moved to the UK initially. So before London, I spent a year studying in Birmingham for my final year of university. And then I didn't know, what was next for me. And the reason why I'm in London is because I found my first job in London. And initially it was a 2-year, or not even 2-year, 18 months contract. So that, I think, made me feel at the beginning that it was just a temporary thing. So, just like an expat experience type of thing. And then contract got extended, moved into a permanent position. And then, I think just happened. And, it's interesting because now I do feel British, like, beyond, I got the citizenship, but beyond that, there's so much of me that has changed. And I completely know that a British person, who's been born and raised the UK would be like, there's no way you're British. But at the same time, I think a French person would also say that there's so much of me who's not, which is not French anymore. And same thing for, for Italy. So here you go.
Well, assuming a person continues to develop and be influenced by their surroundings through their 20s, through their 30s, through their 40s, at whatever age, I mean, our personality doesn't stop developing in childhood, right? So whatever parts of someone born and raised in the UK would sort of come to the forefront in their 20s, then why can't that be the same for you? You're spending the same, span of time there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's talk briefly about motherhood. I understand you're a new mother. You have a 10-month-old son.
That's right.
Has becoming a mother changed how you view the different components of your identity?
So I always knew that, if I were to have children, I wanted to make sure that, they knew about all the different cultures that have influenced me, and also the languages. So, really passing on the Italian and French languages are very important. And so that was always, something that I wanted to do. What I probably is how much effort it could be to make sure that, you know, both languages or cultures have and the same, you know, have an equal weight in everyday life. And to be honest, I think now I've even moved to weekly life. Let's go with weekly life. And of course, there's also, you know, the English culture, the English language. So yeah, it's now, you know, showing him how we are and you know how we are as a family across those three cultures. And you know, it's fun. I think we are quite privileged to, you know, be able to offer that to him, but it's also a bit of hard work.
It is.
And I know you understand that, right? Yeah.
Well, I can tell you from my experience that the balance aspect of it becomes more difficult, and it becomes more of a, like, you've moved from daily to weekly. I think at one point I had to move sort of to a yearly balance over the course of a year, where, you know, my kids' English would really develop in the summers if we spent 2 months in Canada. Because when we were living in Istanbul, they were going to German schools. So our daily life was, let's say, I don't know, I'm just making this up, 70% German, maybe 10% Turkish, 20% English. And ironically, living in Turkey, when we were living in Istanbul, the Turkish part of my kids' identity was minimal. And now that's completely changed. It's been 3 years now since we've been here in the South. Turkish is clearly, you know, their main identity, which is great. It's as it should be. And English is a strong second. But this time, of course, the German has fallen by the wayside because there are no German schools here. And our German circles are much smaller. I have German friends here, but my kids don't have German friends here. So, you know, if I try to maintain the perfect balance, I get anxious. So I just have to trust there will be a time and a place again where, you know, the balance shifts again.
Absolutely. I think this is really, you know, some pearls of wisdom for me.
We'll see. Everyone has their own way that works for them.
I'm sure.
So we met originally because of the work you do. I think you have a very interesting business. So I know you do some cross-cultural training. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Who are your clients? Is this something because of your own experience?
Sure, with pleasure. So I'm a leadership coach, and I've been working with not only leaders but also individuals that have been, you know, on their leadership journey, trying to connect with their inner leader, and not necessarily, you know, with the purpose of leading a team, not always, but also, you know, how can someone show more leadership in their life, in their day-to-day, with their family, you know, in their school. So really leadership with a capital L and the broad, in the broad sense of it. And something that actually came a bit like a big observation, more even an epiphany, was that I was actually attracting a lot of multicultural people. I was working with a lot of multicultural people. And also working with professionals who had just moved to a new country, were coming back home after having worked overseas for a work assignment. And then, of course, with my own multicultural identity, things started to click and to make sense. And that's how I moved into cross-cultural training. So really adding that to my coaching practice, to my professional repertoire. And so as and when it's needed, being able to offer not only the coaching, but also the training where, you may need to actually learn about some, cross-cultural skills, competence, so that you have more awareness of what's going on in those intercultural, relationships you may have with colleagues or friends or even family. And there could be a lot of things that get lost in translation as well. And I really think that the higher awareness you have, the easier it is for you to communicate and also to be yourself. For me, it's also more about understanding the context of the other person, and above all, the differences between your own culture and the culture that you are mainly working with or living in. And sometimes, so for example, with giving feedback, I'm gonna use an example with France and the US. So the Americans, by, I'm gonna say, just overall, would be considered more direct communicators, compared to French people. Which, on a big scale, yes, we can see that. And of course, there are always personal differences. But then when it comes to giving feedback, school setting, professional setting, the French are more direct than what the Americans are. They would tend to focus on the negative much more than what the Americans, focus on. And I think when you don't know about it, it can feel overwhelming. You can feel defeated. You can have loads of mixed signals. But even before you understand this, just having the awareness that your cultural background is different from your boss. And so therefore, because of that, you may approach things differently. If you just stop there, I think there's already, something that is helpful for you and that can just, give you some freedom to just be and just acknowledge that between you two, and just be able to move on, if that makes sense.
I could see that being very freeing and empowering. Yeah. So how much of your interest in this area do you think is because of your own experience, multicultural experience, expat experience?
I think it completely started because of my own, personal experience and personal interest. And then, as I started to work more and more with multiculturals and people crossing cultures, then I started to develop that curiosity about other cultures and how others' experience could differ from mine. And that, was just another level of interest and curiosity. But I think definitely things would have been different if I wouldn't have had, my own multicultural identity or my own expat experience, for sure.
Yeah. As a Canadian from a German background living in Turkey, I have often been told that I am very direct. Depending on who's telling me, I've been told I'm too direct. And I mean, culturally speaking, generally speaking, Turkish people are not very direct insofar as, they don't want to give criticism. They don't want to say no. They're much more, they'll let you down really easily if they have to say no for something, which is not the way I have been trained or, culturally influenced to be. So I can imagine how the work you do would be really interesting and possibly useful for expats, whether they're staying in their host country short-term or long-term. Could you give a strategy or two for anyone that they might find useful in this situation?
Sure. The first thing I would say is really acknowledging that we are influenced by culture, the culture of our home country, or even, of all the different countries that we have lived in. I would say the acknowledgement is really the first step. So, and this goes for us, but also the person that we are working with, living with, and yeah, for sure. And then the other pointer would be having an open conversation, around, especially if you've started to feel that frustration where maybe you feel that you're getting some stares, or some, I don't know, some vibe because you are too direct, something like that, or even because you are not saying no enough, that you're getting some feelings about that there's something that is not quite right. I'd really encourage to have an open communication and just expressing that for you, when there's something that doesn't quite sit well with you, and you'd want to actually say it, just in the way that you're thinking it, without spending too much time in elaborating, upgraders world and things like that. Really, it's important to share, how things are in your mind and how you typically process things to the other people, because they don't know. And I think often we assume that because we work with someone, or because we like someone, because we are friends, the other person will know, right? They will know how we are feeling, how we do things, how we think about things, or even because they also have had an experience in our home country, for example. But it's not always the case. So it's really important to have just an open communication. And what I've seen as well working very well is when you start having this open conversation, then people know a bit more what to expect. But also then you can come to an agreement, right? Because if you are communicating in one way and the other person is completely the opposite, for example, maybe there's a way for you both to meet in the middle, right?
I wish I had known all this 10 plus years ago, because of course at first I just thought, well, it's them. All these people clearly are too sensitive. And then I thought with horror, one day I realized, no, it's me. There must be something wrong with my personality, and it's taken me so long to, like you said, the starting point is just acknowledging, realizing that we're influenced by our cultures, because I didn't know that. So this is really hopefully useful to somebody.
Oh, thank you. And just if I may, there's a book that I think is great, and it's written in a very accessible and fun way. It's called The Culture Map by Erin, Meyer.
Okay.
And to anyone who is interested in in cross-cultural skills, awareness, or just curious about the differences across cultures, I'd really recommend reading this book. It reads so well. It's full of insights, and I think you'll love it, Cecile.
Thank you so much. I will look it up and get my hands on the ebook as soon as we're done talking, and I'll link the details below in the description. Fiorenza, where can people find you if they want to read some of the work you've written, if they want to reach out and work with you, or just follow you on social media?
Thank you for asking. So my website is my name, fiorenzarossini.com. And on there you have all my links to social media. You have my blog posts, and also a lot of info about what I do, and also a bit more about me, and really talk quite a lot about my background and all that. So that's also on my website. And if anyone has any question on leadership or cross-cultural and how that influences your life, please don't hesitate to drop me a line.
Great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So, if you're living abroad, what stage of your journey are you at? Have you already begun to notice some cross-cultural miscommunications or misunderstandings, or is everything still rosy and great? Let me know in the comments below. Once again, if you liked this video, please give it the thumbs up. It really helps this video get seen. Subscribe so you don't miss any future videos, and I'll see you next time.